Hey there, it's Melissa Brunetti, and welcome to the Mind Your Own Karma podcast. Hey Karma Crew, thanks for joining me for this episode of Mind Your Own Karma Beyond the Bandage. I want you to know that if you pressed play on this particular episode, I know one thing about you. You are ready to go deeper than surface level healing and unlock the part of you that's running the show behind the scenes, your subconscious mind. And today's guest is here to help you do exactly that. Craig Meriwether is a certified clinical hypnotherapist and medical hypnosis specialist who's helped thousands of people transform trauma, overcome anxiety, boost confidence, and change lifelong beliefs through the power of the subconscious mind. We're talking about what hypnotherapy really is and what it's not, why we get stuck in fear and overwhelm, and how you can start rewriting your internal programming starting today. It's time to rip off the bandage because this episode might just change your life. Let's dive in. We're welcoming Craig Meriwether to the show today. Hi, Craig.
Hi, Melissa. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. I've been looking forward to this. We've kind of been going back and forth and
Yeah.
finally found a time to chat, so I'm excited to get going.
Great. Hypnotherapy is becoming more mainstream, I think, and not so unique and out of the box. But at the same time, I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions out there about what it is, with social media and things you see at the fair and, things like that. And I know in my work doing somatic therapy at my practice, there's a little bit of hypnotherapy in what I do as well. And I think people have some unrealistic expectations about what it is that we do. So excited to kind of get into it and educate people on really what it is and if it might benefit them,
Right. Yeah.
So let's start at the beginning. What led you to hypnotherapy specifically?
Well, specifically, it was my own depression and anxiety I was going through. This is something that started when I was a teenager, before I even started to drive, and just kind of life circumstances, family circumstances. And it's, one of those things, being human, what you practice, you get better at.
Yeah.
We know this from learning the piano, if you ever took piano lessons or dance or martial arts or whatever it is, foreign language, riding a bicycle, learning to walk as a kid. What you practice, you get better at. Unfortunately, if you're practicing anxiety or anger or depression, it's going to get really good at it. But the issue around it was this was back in the 1980s. And of course, there's no internet back then, or at least internet that we had access to. And those medication didn't really come out until the 90s, late 90s, Prozac and all that stuff. And so back in the 80s, you had whatever book you could find at the bookstore or the library and, talking to somebody.
Yeah.
Teenagers probably know they're going to do either of those.
Yeah.
A big part of the issue is just like, you don't know any better. If you don't know, and it wasn't like I was depressed and anxious all the time. Trying to have fun with friends in high school can be kind of fun sometimes. But as I got older, especially out of school, and a lot of my friends, you break off. Your high school friends go off into all sorts of different directions, other parts of the country and the world, and you lose that base, and you make new friends and things. But I was more of an isolationist, and so it just kind of got deeper and bigger, and the more you practice something, the better you get at it. And then, I was trying, especially in the 90s, the self-help movement was getting big, the self-growth movement. Tony Robbins was becoming super huge. And, right about Oprah was coming out with all her positivity on her show. And so there was a lot more discussion, especially when the medications came out, the Prozacs and all that, the SSRI drugs. So there was a lot more discussion about it. And then you got the internet coming out in what, 96, 97, something like that.
Yeah.
But by the time we were getting to the 2000s, and what really led me to want to improve myself, like really put some time and effort to it, because I had been, but it just couldn't really find anything that worked well for me. We're gonna, my wife is pregnant. And I thought, okay, well, now I really got to get it together. because my mom was struggled with depression. I struggled with depression. What are the chances my son's going to struggle with depression, whether it's nature or
Right.
nurture?
Right.
So I thought, well, if nothing else, sometimes if you won't do it for yourself, you'll do it for somebody else. So I thought, well, I better get my life together. And a lot of things I was reading and researching, especially, early 2000s. He was born in 2000. But in the 2000s, early 2000s, because you had access to a lot of information. And the conversation was out there about depression because of the medications. So it wasn't hidden like it was, so many years before. And one of the things when you read the books or you read the articles or saw interviews or lectures or what have you, was that they would have this list on here's what you can do to change your life and be like the top 5 things or a bullet point list. And 4 of the things would always be different, but one was always the same. It was always hypnotherapy. They were always
Mm.
mentioning hypnotherapy. And so all these people that I looked up to and admired and, inspired me, they were always saying, do hypnotherapy because it's a great way to access the subconscious mind and make changes and create healing. And so I did. And I found it extraordinarily helpful and healing. Just because of the way my brain's wired or my brain works, I have to maintain this. There's a certain relentlessness to this, but I have the tools and the techniques, and I know how to deal with these issues. And hypnotherapy is a big part of that. And so, you know, I started talking about more about like depression and things as the internet made it easier and easier to get, to talk to people and do things. And I wrote a book about depression. And I was kind of doing the personal growth thing, but I finally had the opportunity to train in hypnotherapy at a wonderful school, the Hypnotherapy Academy of America. 2.5 months, 500 hours, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m.,
Mm.
Monday through Friday. It was extraordinary training.
Yeah.
And, I just had the opportunity later in life, kind of to pivot and kind of move even deeper into the work I like doing and became a hypnotherapist and just love the ability to help people change because as you know, with this work, it's not that I'm fixing anybody. I don't fix anybody. And
Right.
hypnotherapy in and of itself doesn't fix anybody. You fix yourself.
Hmm.
Because who better to know what the problem is than you, and who better to know what to do about it than you?
Yeah.
Just like the subconscious mind knows how to heal the cut on a finger, heal the scrape on a knee. You don't have to think about it. A lot of times, I don't know how that got there. I don't know how I got that cut on my finger. I don't know how to scrape on the knee. But the body knows, or the mind, the brain, and the body knows that, oh, here's an emergency. We need to send the white blood cells or the whatever is going on there. We need to create a scab. We need to create the antibodies. We need to create new tissue. We need to create new skin. And in a week, somebody's, hey, didn't you have a scrape on your knee? I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess I did. I don't know what happened there. It just healed itself.
Yeah.
Body and mind know what to do to heal. Just sometimes with these emotional and mindset issues, it may be holding on to that stuff to protect and to keep you
Hmm.
safe, to armor yourself. It's just kind of faulty computer programming.
Yeah.
Sort of like if somebody's writing a computer program, an accounting program for their business, and they put in there 2 + 2 = 5. Well, that's not right. But the computer program doesn't know, just okay, 2 + 2 = 5. Maybe that's what you want. Maybe that's
Hmm.
necessary for whatever you're doing in your business. So I'll keep it 2 + 2 = 5 until it gets changed. It's not trying to harm you or mess with you, make your life miserable. It's just that's the computer code that was entered, maybe by
Yeah.
mistake, maybe through duress, unconsciously, maybe as a child even. But that's the computer code that was entered in, as computer coders say, garbage in, garbage out,
Hmm.
until you change it.
Yeah.
And that's the brilliance of this. It's just, I don't want to make it sound as easy as that, but maybe sometimes it's as easy as that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us what hypnotherapy is and maybe what it isn't.
Sure. Well, the idea around therapeutic hypnosis is moving down into a relaxed state of mind and body, the biology of it really quickly. And of course, look, it takes about 10 years to get a PhD in neuroscience. So we're going to do a little 5 minute, about the brain and the mind. But the basic biology around it is brainwave state. And the famous brainwave states we learned about back in school are beta, alpha, theta, and delta. Well, beta is the consciousness, being in this present moment. And it's literally just how fast the neurons are firing in your brain. So whenever we do it, whenever I wave my hands around, I walk down the street, I ride a bicycle, I eat spaghetti, I think a thought, I feel an emotion, I fire brain cells. And you can watch this on YouTube if you haven't already seen this, the little electrical storm in your brain of all the neurons connecting together and firing together, and how fast they fire their little electrical pulses to each other determines your state of your brainwave state. And a pulse moves from the back to the front to the back again. That's one pulse. Being in the beta brainwave state, which you and I, Melissa, are in right now, and maybe the other people listening and watching are in right now, as they're focused on this present moment of this discussion, this conversation, we're firing about 18 cycles per second. Well, maybe you remember back in school, back in high school, there was a class that you didn't like so much, or maybe there was a boring meeting at work or something, maybe even a boring TV show, and your mind drifts off, it wanders away, gets into that daydreamy state. Well, the biology behind that is slowing down how fast your brain is operating. It's not unhealthy, it's just a normal aspect of being human. And we do this multiple times a day. Your brain slows down and you drift off into, thinking about the future. And, oh, I got that meeting next week and I got to get that presentation done, or I got homework due, or I got people coming over and I got to get the house together. Or you think, oh boy, that trip we took a couple months ago, that was so much fun. We're really going to have to do that again. I love being at the beach. Well, you moved yourself out of the present moment. That's the whole point of meditation, right? Like Zen meditation or uh, TM or whatever it may be, is to keep you in this present moment. Bring yourself back to the breath. Bring yourself back to the mantra. Be in this present moment. You do it again and you do it again because the brain keeps fluttering off. Well, in hypnosis, you want your brain to flutter off, and basically just move down into the alpha brainwave state. That's the daydreaming state, firing about 12 cycles per second. So if I'm back in high school math class, let's say, and I got to do well, and it's going to the final exam. I got to do well, and I'm taking notes, and I got to get a good grade, and I'm paying attention to the teacher. I'm in the beta brainwave state. I'm focusing. I'm trying to understand all these equations the teacher's going on. It's so boring for me. I can't take this anymore. So I just kind of drift off and start staring out the window, thinking about the weekend. I'm going to hang out with my friends. Maybe we'll go to the new movie. We'll have to get there early. I start thinking about all these things. Well, I moved out of the beta brainwave state and I slowed down how fast my brain is operating and started daydreaming about the future, maybe remembering the past, looking at the tree out in the quad. And I've slowed down my brainwave state to be in the alpha brainwave state. Just a natural process of altering my state of consciousness, which sounds scary and maybe I should be on ayahuasca or LSD, but no, we do this all the time. We alter our states of consciousness. And I've moved myself down the alpha brainwave state. And then my eyes are getting heavy, my head starts nodding down. And, I'm not really asleep, but I'm definitely not awake anymore. I've altered my state of consciousness one more time. I've now moved down to theta brainwave state. I'm firing about 6 cycles per second. Pretty soon I'm going to be asleep. This is so boring for me. I'm going to be, firing at 1 cycle, half cycle per second. But the teacher sees me and says, "Hey, Craig, why don't you come up here and do the problem on the board?" And I jolt awake. I look around, everybody's staring at me. I'm embarrassed. I don't know how to do the problem. I wasn't paying attention. Now I'm stressed. Now I'm firing about 25 cycles per second.
Yeah.
Well, I'm stressed. I'm definitely back in the present moment and everybody's staring at me. Well, I've just altered my state of consciousness 3 or 4 times in a matter of 7, 8 minutes because I'm bored in high school math class. We use that in therapeutic hypnosis to move you into that daydreaming state because as you quiet down the conscious level of mind, you have access to the subconscious. And there's nothing magical or mystical about this. We do it all the time where you've had that experience of driving home and you're about 5, 6 blocks from your house or your apartment, and you start thinking, "Oh boy, I got to get that report done by Friday," or I got people coming over, and oh, I better get to the store. Oh, I know I got to get the drinks ready, and all of a sudden you find yourself at your driveway or your garage or your parking spot. You don't remember the last 5 or 6 blocks. We just altered your state of consciousness by moving down into the alpha brainwave state. Your subconscious mind took over driving, just like it takes over riding a bicycle or walking down the street. You know how to do it. You've driven home hundreds of times, if not thousands of times. And so we just do that on purpose for the sake of healing. And again, there's nothing magical or mystical about this. The word hypnosis, in fact, comes from Greek mythology and the Greek god Hypnos, who is the Greek god of sleep, because back in the early 1800s, Dr. James Esdale, a Scottish physician who's in India, and back in the early 1800s, you didn't have fancy hospitals or fancy anesthesia, any of that kind of stuff. If you had to have your leg amputated, you're biting down on a stick, or maybe a blow to the head to knock you unconscious or something. Well, being in India, he learned this technique to put somebody into a deep trance state, so far deep into a trance state, it looked like they're in a coma.
Mm.
So then he could do amputations. He could cut people open with a knife and take out tumors and sew them back up and deal with injuries and war wounds and all sorts of stuff. Well, he went back to England. He took this process with him, started joining other physicians there in England. And another one, Dr. James Braid, was working with it and wanting a word to describe this trance state, this coma-like state, to his colleagues and to write about it. He decided to name it after the Greek god of sleep. So he called it hypnosis. And
Mm.
since then, that word's grown to encompass all sorts of different altered states of consciousness. Um, just by moving down into the alpha brainwave state, you're now considered to be in hypnosis. In fact, the alpha, theta, and delta brainwave states is what's known as the hypnagogic trance state. But it's not mind control. You can't control anybody.
Yeah.
Otherwise, smoking cessation would be 100% guarantee. You know, it's not 100% guarantee because some people actually don't want to quit smoking. So you can't make people do anything. Otherwise I could go into Las Vegas, go into every casino and just get people to stop smoking, whether they wanted to or not, and everybody'd be healthier. I'd go into prisons and hypnotize everybody to be law-abiding, upstanding citizens and shut down the prison system. I'd hypnotize my way into the UN and all the leaders of the United Nations. I'd hypnotize them to create world peace, and I'd end war. You know, I'd get Elon Musk to write me $1 billion check. But the reason I don't have $1 billion check is because Elon Musk doesn't want to write me one, right? And so you can't make people do anything they don't want to do. Like if somebody wants to quit smoking and they come to me to quit smoking, I can't then add in suggestions to go rob a bank and we'll split the
Yeah.
money. Because it doesn't work that way. I can't hypnotize Jason Bourne to assassinate the prime minister. It doesn't work that way. Now, you mentioned it before, the carnivals and the fairs and the comedy clubs and Las Vegas shows. And yeah, that looks pretty ridiculous. A bunch of people on stage dancing like Michael Jackson and singing like Elvis Presley and quacking like ducks and barking like dogs, pretending they're on a roller coaster, whatever the skit is. But you have to understand, everybody who got up on that stage volunteered to get up there. You know, they're exhibitionists, they're extroverts. They want to be part of the show. They want to be the star of the show. They want a funny video to put on Instagram. They want to be funny in front of their friends. They want to have a good time. That's not a good time to me. I don't want to be up on stage. But a lot of people, they want to be part of the show. They want to be part of the fun. And they want to have that experience. And at the end of the show, they all have a big smile on their face. And think about who the hypnotist is going to pick. Are they picking the introvert at the back of the room who's hiding in the shadows and sitting down on their chair and going, no, 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 not me? Or are they picking the person who's jumping up and down and waving their hand, me, please pick
Yeah.
me?
Yeah.
Who are they picking? The people who want to be up there, because who's going to have a better time and actually follow along the instructions, whether they're faking it or not,
Hmm.
because they want to have a good time. You
Yeah.
can't make anybody do anything they don't want to do. But if your intention is to have a good time and to show off and have be a part of a funny show, if your intention is to quit smoking, if your intention is to heal, what are the chances you're going to do that?
Yeah.
You want to do it.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about expectation a little bit. I know I get people a lot thinking that I'm just going to put them to sleep and work on their brain while they're asleep, and they're going to wake up and, in one session, they're going to be all better. What do you tell people that come to see you about expectations?
I make it very clear that they're going to be doing the work. And oftentimes, and like you, I kind of have somewhat of a somatic approach to this work in that, it's body, mind, spirit, body, mind connection, however you want to look at it. And so I think body is really important to it. And with this work, we're using the subconscious mind. And so Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung, and Milton Erickson, they all showed us and taught us that the subconscious mind speaks in symbolism, in metaphor, uh, allegory, storytelling. And so we can speak back to the subconscious mind. This isn't talk therapy, which can be very important. Talk therapy is a very important way to create change and healing, and just to talk about it to somebody who's got a wonderful set of ears to listen to you. But this isn't that. This is something different. And this is sort of reprogramming your subconscious mind, but there is effort involved. Yeah, there's to a certain extent, when people relax so fully, you're able to install the suggestions they want. Because again, it's the suggestions they want. You've already talked about it. You're using their words. And that's why the intake form is very important, because I want to make sure, because I think everybody should have more joy in their life. Well, maybe that word doesn't work for them because they had a teacher or their aunt or somebody who was named Joy and we were kind of mean to them or something. So joy is not a very good word to use. So what about happiness would be better? So you want to use their words. And in terms of using this work, yeah, their expectations, it's important because we want to work on what they want to work on. Even if it's just, I don't know, I just feel like I'm blocking myself. I feel like I'm self-sabotaging myself. That's all we need. That's all we need. You may write 8 very detailed paragraphs about what the problem is and what you want to work on. Or someone may just say, I just feel anxious all the time. I don't know why. Well, your subconscious mind does, because it's not easy to turn on the stress response. It's a very inefficient way to run the body. So it knows when to do it and why it's doing it. So the expectation is you're going to be doing the healing work. I don't work hard. I don't like to work hard, you know. So that's why I don't dig holes in the summertime or do roofing work or anything like that. I like doing hypnotherapy because it's me helping somebody else fix themselves. I
Mm-hmm.
don't have to do it for them because I don't know what's wrong. How would I know what's wrong?
Yeah.
But you know what's wrong. And that's what's extraordinary about this is you can create the healing, even if you're not really sure, because that's the conscious mind. That's that logical part of mind. We're dealing with the emotionalized subconscious mind. And just by having an intuition, a notion of what might be the problem, even just a feeling state. I don't know. I just feel hurt in my heart. Okay. We'll start there. That's the
Mm-hmm.
symbolism, the metaphor, the allegory of the subconscious mind. But there may be aspects of it where, okay, I want you to take a big vacuum hose, put it up to your heart and vacuum out all that hurt and pain. Or I want you
Yeah.
to pull it out, or I want you to pretend that you're doing this or that or the other thing. And then that's the process, the symbolism, the metaphor, the allegory. It doesn't matter. It's ridiculous. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we know we can change how we feel in our body and how our body runs by having a nightmare. And it doesn't matter how crazy the nightmare is, a big gigantic cheeseburger is chasing you down the street throwing coconuts at you. It'll turn on the stress response. Again, not a very efficient way to run the body, not an easy way to run the body. Brain's creating adrenaline and cortisol, heart's racing to get the blood and oxygen to your muscles. Breathe in shallowly to quickly get oxygen into your system. You're shutting down and powering your immune system, your digestive system, all because of cheeseburgers chasing you down the street. Through thought alone, you can change how you feel in your body. Okay, so
Yeah.
let's do that on purpose. And it
Right.
may involve some somatic experiences of like, I want you, that cord that's connecting you to your ex, and still feel hurt and pain around that. I want you to notice where that cord is connected to you. Well, it's the back of my neck, it's my forehead, it's my heart, it's my gut, it's my fist. Or it's like, okay, grab that cord and pull it out like you're pulling out the, blender cord from the wall. And so there's these somatic experiences. Then I've had people who do this deep healing work, which takes some time. I've had people pull out stuff and, for 20 minutes, half an hour before,
Mm-hmm.
which sounds
Yeah.
extraordinary, and it is extraordinary.
Yeah.
But again, it's their subconscious mind saying, no, there's still stuff. There's still
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So I don't know what this means. This spiky red ball in my chest means. It doesn't matter. Your
Yeah.
subconscious mind is showing you what needs to go. Pull it out. And I can't pull it out for them. They may ask for help from their guides or ancestors or friends, but they have to do it. And it may involve actually literally taking their hands and pulling something out. Mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. It'll change how you feel in your body to match what you're thinking and feeling. Even if it's ridiculous, like a
Yeah.
cheeseburger chasing on the street or unplugging from the hurt and pain and watching the cord evaporate, and because it doesn't have any more power. And that's where healing happens. And then after that, they might go super deep because they're tired.
Hmm.
It can be exhausting work. Or they may still be, up in that alpha brainwave state, but they may slip down to that theta brainwave state. But one thing always happens. They always wake up at 5. So I know they're listening. It says, don't open your eyes. Don't come back to being fully aware and alert until you've integrated all the suggestions, all the healing. Only then on 5 will you open your eyes when you know all the healing. And so even if I don't think they're like, because they're not maybe responding as they were, so I
Yeah.
know, and I can tell by their breathing or their slack face, or you can see their eyes darting
Yep.
around or whatever. Even on Zoom sessions, you can see their eyes darting around. And so they're deep, but they're still listening because they opened their eyes at 5. Never on 1, never on 2, never a minute before. It's always on
Yeah.
5. So I know they're listening. If they followed that instructions, why aren't they following in every other instruction? Or you can sense them. They're deep in that theta brainwave state, and you start 1. There are other things you're saying around it, but 1, 2, and right around 3, there you start seeing them coming back. They're moving
Mm-hmm.
back up into the alpha brainwave state, and then on 5, they're like back in the beta brainwave state.
Yeah.
Because they're following the instructions, and so
Yeah.
it's be pretty extraordinary to watch.
So, just in simple terms, how does hypnotherapy help reprogram the subconscious?
Well, it's not that hypnotherapy is doing it, it's that you're doing it. It's just kind of a tool to
Hmm.
help you do it uh, in a more conscious way. A lot of the issues that people come to hypnotherapy for, they're coming to it because they've already hypnotized themselves. They're stressed, so they're smoking cigarettes. There's no redeeming value to smoking cigarettes. Not the money, not the health, not the smell, nothing other than it makes them feel safe or makes them feel better or
Hmm.
reminds them of hanging out with their friends and feeling good when they're a teenager or whatever. And so they've already hypnotized themselves to create anxiety, uh, and not know why. I don't know why, but it's just sometimes during the day I feel really, really anxious. Like, well, you know why? Because it's not easy to turn on the stress response. You're only doing it here and there. Your subconscious mind knows why it's doing it. You've already hypnotized yourself. So a lot of this work, as you know, is like it's dehypnotizing people.
Mm.
And we may use the exact same kind of processes. It may be unconscious, and certainly not through distress, but a lot of these instructions stored in the subconscious mind may have uh, been installed through a traumatic experience. Maybe as a child, certainly unconsciously.
Yeah.
And this isn't to blame the child. It's not to blame anybody. It's not to blame the victim or say it's their fault or it was fair. Either. Certainly, it was not fair. But the harsh reality is that person is the one who installed those instructions on how to keep themselves safe. Maybe that's self-sabotage, or maybe that's hiding or keeping their voice low or quiet. Maybe the safest thing that child could have done was to hide
Yeah.
and keep their voice low. Well, that's not going to be great when you're an adult, but they program themselves and to keep themselves safe in that way. And again, it's not to say it should have happened or they shouldn't have been traumatized. It certainly wasn't their fault, but they're the ones who install those instructions on how to keep themselves safe. So that becomes very empowering because if they're the ones who installed it, they're the ones who can take it out and put in
Yeah.
something new. And that's the power of this. Because again, I don't fix anybody. And again, hypnotherapy in and of itself doesn't fix anybody. You fix yourself. We use this tool to do it,
Yeah.
but it's just relaxing the mind and body to the point of getting to the daydreamy state of being bored back in high school math class. Everybody remembers that movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and the economics teacher, Bueller, he hypnotized all those kids
Yeah.
into the alpha, theta, even delta brainwave state. They're all lying on their desk, drooling and out unconscious. And that's the thing with you're getting sleepy. Yeah, you want to be like the economics teacher sometime and bore them like the math teacher, bore the person down into the alpha brainwave state, into the daydreaming state. It's maybe a little uncomfortable to think that you're going to work on some heavy stuff. So it's
Yeah. Yeah.
relaxing a little bit,
Yeah.
and allow the subconscious mind to create the healing. Yeah.
What's the connection between confidence and the subconscious? Can we actually train ourselves to feel more confident?
Yeah, because you're confident in a great many things. you know, and maybe, even look at something small like tying your shoes. I think unless you're, a 2-year old or 5-year old or something, I don't know when kids tie their shoes, but um, you're confident in a great many things. You're confident tying your shoes. You're confident of zipping up your jacket. You're confident that you boil water to make pasta. Confident in a great many things. So a lot of times it's, well, what does that confidence feel like? Confidence knowing you can go to where you put your shoes, sit down and tie your shoes and walk out of the house. You don't have to think about it. You just do it. Or slip on your shoes or put on your jacket, put on a hat, put the gloves on the right hands. Are you confident that you can put the gloves as you walk out into the winter weather, that you can put on gloves on the right hands? Well, yeah, of course I can. You can drive a car, ride a bicycle, walk down the street. Do you have to think about walking down the street or do you just do it? You're confident you can walk from here to the mailbox and back again without falling over, assuming it's not icy. It's like, yeah, of course. Well, that's confidence. So you are confident in a great many things. So oftentimes it's just linking that confidence to the other thing. A big thing for people is uh, getting up and doing the big speech at the meeting or the conference or whatever. I say, well, I'm not very confident in that. I say, okay, well, there may need to be some healing work around that because maybe in the 6th grade doing show and tell or the book report or whatever, it didn't go well and everybody laughs. So now it's programmed that it's unsafe to be in front of people. So maybe there's healing around that, but there still needs to be confidence, whether it's getting up in front of people or in relationships or something else. And you can apply that confidence to that other thing. You know what it feels like to be confident. And so there's another somatic way of dealing with transforming and changing in this way is to use anchors, like touch anchors. And so when you get into that feeling state of confidence of tying your shoes, where do you feel confident? I feel it in my chest, in my heart, or my gut, or the back of my neck, or whatever. I feel it here. Okay, what color is it? Oh, it's yellow. It's bright yellow. Okay, make it even more yellow. Make it brighter and bigger. Like you're turning up the volume on it, like you're on a stereo, and make it even feel more confident, like you're turning it all the way up to 10. And now press your finger and thumb together, you know, and then it's that Pavlovian neurons that fire together, wire together.
Mm.
And even though Pavlov was ringing a bell, the dog's physiology changed and they started, turning on their digestive system and drooling, even though there's no food around, because the ringing of the bell was linked to the neurons that were turning on the digestive system. Well, you can do this with touch. It's that thing when you hear that song, it reminds you of high school prom or a vacation, or that smell reminds you of your favorite restaurant or grandmother's kitchen or something. Like what brings you back to a feeling state. Well, you can do it with any of the modalities, any of the 5 senses. And touch is really a good one to do because it's very discreet. And so you press your finger and thumb together, linking that confidence. And now I want you to think into the future, pretending, moving off into that daydream. You say, I want you to think about the future. I want you to see yourself giving that speech and the standing ovation. Mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined, and start rewiring your brain to match, your body with what you're thinking and feeling. And there may be other issues around pretending, rehearsing. Uh, you know, what's the greatest speaker that you want to emulate? Okay, just off the top of my head, Tony Robbins. Okay, well, Tony Robbins is this person's favorite speaker. He's so energetic and motivating and inspiring. He's been doing it 40 years. Man, he's so good at it. I'd love to be someday as good as Tony Robbins or Oprah or whoever. And it says, oh, I want you to watch Tony Robbins, like pretend like there's a film up on a movie screen of Tony Robbins, see him do his perfect thing. And then, notice this aura around him. Like he's got this life energy. What color is it? It's yellow, it's gold, it's blue, it's something else. And see that life energy around him. And then do a making of documentary. Like, what did he do to practice, to rehearse, to train, to get the skills to be that good? See a making of documentary, behind the scenes documentary. And now see that whole scene again, but instead of Tony Robbins, see yourself up on the movie exactly as Tony Robbins is doing it, but it's you, and you see that aura around you. And now step into it and pretend that it's you. Like you're stepping into an Iron Man suit or a suit of armor or something else. And so it becomes you. And yeah, it's ridiculous. It's just plain pretend, but it's literally just rewiring your head through
It
symbolism, through
works.
allegory, through
Yeah.
storytelling, the language of the subconscious mind. And you can build that confidence because the mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. There's this research done back in the 90s. And it was right as MRIs are coming out and SPECT scans, and researchers could watch the brain in real time, something very new. Before that, they had sociological experiments and autopsies, but this is new. You actually watch the brain do stuff in real time. And so one group of researchers wanted to watch the brain learn. What does the brain do when it learns something new? They picked piano. And they brought in all these volunteers who learned how to play piano, showed them the simple scales and exercise, little songs. And they spent 2 hours a day for 7 days straight practicing piano. Yeah. All the songs, all the little exercises and scales. They had the control group because you're doing this kind of research. You want to compare and contrast. Here's a group who doesn't do anything new, doesn't learn anything new. And at the end of the week, what's the differences in the brain? Here's a brain that obviously is not going to change. Here's a brain that learned piano. What are the differences in the brain now? Compare and contrast. Well, what's interesting about this research is he had a third group, and this third group only pretended to play the piano. And so they brought them in, they showed them simple little scales and exercises, the little songs you learn. But instead of sitting at the piano, they sat at a recliner on the couch, closed their eyes, and pretended to play piano, just daydreamed. And at the end of the week, they put the little skull cap on everybody or the MRI machine or whatever they're doing, and they measured everybody's brain. The control group, nothing changed, no big mystery there. They didn't do anything new. They didn't learn anything. Of course, nothing changed. So no big mystery there. The group who learned piano, put their hands on the keys, worked the keys with their fingers, heard the music, read the sheet music with their eyeballs. They developed a new neural network in the part of the brain for music, associated with music and learning. Okay, that makes sense. Of course they did. They're learning something new. They're practicing a skill. They developed new neurons, new neural pathway, brain cells connecting together. Well, what's fascinating is a group who only pretended to play the piano developed the same neural network in the same part of the brain as those people who are playing piano. Their brains look like they're piano players, even though they never touched the piano, never heard any music, never read any sheet music.
Yeah.
Through pretending they were somebody else, they literally rewired their brain in less than a week. Now, of course, that's, you want to keep that going. You're going to practice, you're going to rehearse, you're going to keep it going. There's a certain relentlessness to keeping up skills and talents like that. But you can rewire your brain. According to the University College of London, it takes 66 days to create a habit. We're talking months, if not weeks. It doesn't have to take years and years and years and decades to fix.
Yeah.
But it does take some practice. It's not just you go like you were talking about before. Well, it's just not one session and it's one and done. No, there's some practice involved in this. Yeah, you take a piano lesson, but then you're going to be practicing. And how long is it going to take to change? I don't know. If you're learning that piece of Mozart on the piano, are you practicing 15 minutes once a week? Or are you practicing, 3 hours twice a day? One's going to get you there faster.
Yeah.
For those of your listeners, Melissa, who are of a certain age, you may remember the 1970s and the Soviet Union in the Olympics. And the Soviet Union was very dominant in gymnastics. Nani Comaneci from Romania and all the Soviet Union satellite states. They won the gold and the silver and the bronze and all the world championships. And no one could figure out how the gymnastics team of the Soviet Union was so far superior than everybody else until some of the athletes and some of the coaches started to defect in the end of the 70s and the early 80s. And what the world found out is that the Soviet Union team was spending at least 50% of their time in mental rehearsal. So yes, they'd get on, if they're doing the mats with the twists and the tumbles and the turns, they would do that for 6 hours, or they'd be on the uneven bars or the rings or whatever they're doing. They'd practice that physically. But then if they're practicing 6 hours, they spend at least 3 hours sitting on the couch, lying down, sitting in a recliner, and mentally rehearsing that over and over again successfully. The twists, the turns, the tumbles, the dismounts, the parallel bars, maybe slow motion, maybe fast motion. Just do it over and over and over again. And so we know why that worked now, because they were literally wiring in their heads. And this should be a kind of a warning for people, because what if you're practicing failure? Are you not wiring that into your system, into your brain? You're wiring, if I do that speech, I'm going to stammer and I'm going to forget what I'm supposed to say, and my PowerPoint's going to be upside down, and everybody's going to laugh at me. If you're rehearsing that, how well is your speech going to go? If you're literally wiring that non-success into your brain. And so that's
Yeah.
why you need to be very vigilant about this stuff. You need to you're literally, a person's hypnotizing themselves.
Hmm.
Be a failure at speaking.
Yeah.
You know?
Wow. Yeah, that's powerful. How
Yeah.
long does it typically take to shift a mindset using hypnotherapy?
Mm, again, it depends on the work they want to do afterwards.
Yeah.
Because there's a certain relentlessness to this. And we know this from our physical health, right? There's nobody on earth today that doesn't understand that you need to work out your body pretty consistently. Going to the gym 2, 3, 4 times a week, or a class, or a spin class, or ride your bike, or go on a walk, or go on a hike, or run, or whatever you're doing. It's not like you get to go to a personal trainer once and work out at the gym twice and you look like a superhero for the next 50 years and you get to eat pizza and drink soda. It's like, no, it's relentless. You gotta work out all the time. Those people who look like the superheroes in the Marvel movies, or the jacked out, people, it's like they're working out every day to look like that, and we know that. You can't eat pizza and drink soda 3 meals a day and not suffer the consequences of ill health and weight gain and all that. We know there's a relentlessness to our physical health, but there's also a relentlessness to our mental health and our emotional health, our spiritual health. The Dalai Lama still meditates every day. Man, at this time of this recording, he just turned 90, you know, and every day he meditates. And you read his books, he talks about the anger and the despair and the sorrow, frustration of what's going on in Tibet. Chinese government still arresting his monks and torturing his monks and bulldozing down his monasteries to build roads and railroad tracks and all that. He's 90. He's never going back. He was exiled out of Tibet in what, like 1957 or something like that, 56. He's not going back.
Yeah.
He's angry about that. He despairs about what happening to his monks. Probably causes great depression. But he doesn't want that to be who he is, his essence. So every day he practices loving kindness and compassion meditation. That's his work. That's what he does. And he's 90. And if anybody's to have it down by now, you think he'd be that guy. He's not married. He doesn't have any kids. He doesn't have a small business and dealing with the tax stuff and hiring people and firing people and bankruptcy and all this stuff. He's got a staff of people to meet his every needed want. So if anybody's to get it done by the age of 40 and just kick back and phone it in, it'd be that guy. But every day he practices, because there's a relentlessness to this. We know this with our physical health, our spiritual health, our emotional health, certainly our mindset. And so there may be some practice in the confidence you want to build around that, giving the big speech or whatever it is you want to do. Might be some practice of, even just something like somebody's golf game. A lot of us will remember Tiger Woods and what happened to him. He didn't all of a sudden forget how to putt.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't all of a sudden forget how to sink it from 100 yards away. He messed up in his life, and he had an extraordinarily, change in his mindset on who he is and how he relates to the world and his family. And it screwed up his game for like 10 years, you know. And so it wasn't a physical issue. It wasn't a issue of forgetting how to golf. It was a mindset issue. And we
Yeah.
can change either direction. And so it's kind of up to you. You know, do you want what state do you want to be in? You want more joy and happiness? You can have it. That doesn't make the challenges of life go away, but at least it allows you to come to a more resilient, more resourceful way. And so, in terms of creating more happiness or joy or confidence or gratitude or whatever it is the person is looking for, you can have it, but it may take some practice.
Hmm.
Hypnotherapy can help remove any sort of maybe blocks or self-sabotage or the hurt and pain that may be blocking that joy and happiness, and install the seeds, the spark of that happiness and joy. But, if you don't practice, what are the chances that it's going to grow? If you don't water it, you don't nurture it, you can pull the weeds. That doesn't mean you're going to have an extraordinary flower garden, you know. And so there's nurturing to it. And when you stop nurturing, I don't know, ask the Dalai Lama when you stop doing it.
Yeah.
Seems like you do it till you're done.
Yeah.
And so there's a practice to this. And yeah, it's a pain. I don't always like going to the gym, you know, but I know it's necessary if I want to keep my body at a certain health and wellness. And same with my, mindset and my my emotional health. I mean, I talked about the depression and anxiety. But then, just the way my brain operates doesn't like all of a sudden went away because I did a couple of hypnotherapy sessions.
Yeah.
The hurt and pain of life I was able to heal, but I still have to maintain just because this is the way my brain operates, you know. And I use these tools, I use these skills and these strategies to help maintain, you know, the mindset and the emotional state that I feel comfortable with. And so,
Yeah.
there's, I don't know if that would answer your question. I know that was probably like a long answer to a question, but it's it, there's a certain relentlessness to being awesome. You can be as awesome as you want to be.
Yeah.
It's also, again, to be healthy in body takes some time and effort. And also, but with your mental state, your mindset, it may just be listening to that 15-minute recording.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So are there any quick techniques that someone could use to calm anxiety just in the moment when things are going on?
Yeah, yeah. Anxiety, there's a couple things really quick. Some super duper quick ones would be if you were to like you're in the airport or you're in a meeting or something, maybe not wouldn't do this in a meeting, but someplace even outside in front of public, you just squeeze all your muscles,
Mm-hmm.
hold your breath, and let it go. It really helps release the stress within the body. That body is then going to communicate that to the brain and the mind. So just tense every muscle from your toes up to your hair follicles to your little tiny muscles in your fingers. Tense everything and then just let it go like that. That's a good one to do. Um, because when you're feeling some anxiety or panic or stress or anger, you're lighting up a part of the right side of the brain. And so to calm that down, you can take my glasses off here. Cover up your left eye. And it's only to cover it up because it's hard to I can't do it. Like close one eye, keep doing it. So cover up the eye and then look up. Keep your head still, like your head's looking forward, but you look up with your right eye, like you're looking up above your eyebrow. And there's to look up, and we do in hypnotherapy, you'll hear as part of the induction sometimes with your eyes closed, look up above your eyebrow because there's something about looking up like that turns on the parasympathetic nervous system.
Mm.
And covering that left eye, because left side of the body is controlled by the right side of the brain, you're calming down that right side of the brain. And so there's another issue. Putting an ice pack on the back of your neck helps stimulate the vagus nerve. Breathing deeply helps stimulate the vagus nerve. Vagus nerve is attached to the lungs, of course, the heart and the gut, and the vagus nerve is a big part of the parasympathetic nervous system, the relaxation response. And so it's attached to the lungs by breathing deeply. The lungs are huge. And when you're stressed, you just kind of hyper breathe because you want that quick oxygen to the muscles to fight the bear or deal with the emergency. So when you breathe deeply, you're not only signaling from your body, so in somatic therapy again, back to your brain that you're safe because you're breathing slowly and deeply. You don't breathe slowly and deeply when the bear is chasing you or the fire is coming at your house. So you're signaling from your body back to the brain through the vagus nerve because 80% of the fibers of the vagus nerve go to the brain than the other way around. So more information is coming from your body to the brain. And so you can use your body. And so breathing deeply, and of course, exhaling all the carbon dioxide and the trash and the garbage, but you're breathing oxygen. The brain takes 20% of the oxygen we breathe in. The more oxygen you can breathe in, the more you can nurture and nourish your brain with oxygen and all the other nourishment that's coming in there for calm, rational thinking. So deep breathing is an extraordinary way of centering yourself, calming yourself, just changing your state, changing your body. You can see your friend walking towards you. You say, "Oh, what's wrong with them?" You can tell they're depressed or they're angry or they're frustrated. It's from their body language. 50% of communication is body language. You tell from their bodies what's going on. Well, undo that. Roll your shoulders back, chin up. Because again, through your body, you're going to communicate back to your brain. So to change state, breathe, change your body. There's all those little techniques I just showed. But uh, as you breathe out, exhale out of your mouth twice as long. Again, there's something about having the exhale longer than the inhale. And as you hold, because there's thousands of breathing techniques, all these things you can find on YouTube and wherever. But you breathe in, maybe to the count of 4, hold it, because as you hold it, the pressure within your lungs forces more oxygen into your bloodstream. And then exhale to the count of 6 or 7. And that will also help. But as you exhale out of your mouth, you can sigh deeply or hum or something like, ah, like that. Because the vagus nerve runs past your vocal cords. You vibrate your vocal cords, you sympathetically vibrate your vagus nerve. Again, stimulating the vagus nerve, you activate the parasympathetic nervous system. Closing your eyes while you're doing it, because now there's no danger to look at. Again, signaling your body because the vagus nerve attaches to your eyes. So a lot of different techniques you can use to start training your nervous system. And again, that's a big part of this. This is like hypnotherapy can deal with a lot of the hurt and pain that has been stored up and start the seeding process of the joy and the happiness and the peace and the calm and the resiliency. But those seeds are going to grow because you're nurturing them, you're practicing them. Yeah.
What's one thing that you wish everyone understood about their subconscious mind?
What is strongest within your mind is what you do over and over again. What you practice, you get better at. And if you're practicing anxiety, if you're practicing anger, if you're practicing being depressed or sad or angry or afraid, maybe afraid of a specific thing like going to the doctor or going to the dentist or getting on stage to do a speech or in the big meeting. If you're practicing that, you're going to get really good at it. You're literally going to wire it into your head. If you're imagining how bad the speech is going to go at the big conference when you're giving the keynote, you're literally wiring that into your brain, literally creating the neural pathways and practicing it so they're going to get stronger, faster. It's like learning how to play the piano or learning martial arts or dance or whatever. You're going to create stronger neural pathways for failure, for non-success, for lack of confidence. What is strongest within your mind is what you do over and over again. What you practice, you get better at. So make sure it's something awesome. And if you catch yourself in that ruminating thoughts, there's all these, clench up your muscles, because that's going to pull your mind away, because now you're focusing on, it's like, okay, it's every muscle. Okay, I'm not doing my legs. I better do my legs. Or this, thing of the covering your eyes. It takes a little effort to remember how to do that. And it'll pull your mind out of this stuff and start calming your brain down.
So tell the listeners where we can find you if they want to get in touch with you and possibly work with you.
The best way is through my website. I live in Flagstaff, Arizona. And so I named my business many years ago, Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy, because I thought I'd work in Flagstaff and maybe the big goal, get down to Phoenix. But now with the internet and Zoom, and especially after the COVID era, and we all learned that how awesome Zoom sessions are because we feel relaxed and comfortable in our homes. And even the research shows it works with talk therapy and relationship counseling and hypnotherapy and doctor's appointments. Works as well as. In fact, there's some research that shows that Zoom sessions work better because of how safe you feel in your home and relax and things. But the best thing to do is to find me at my website, Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy. And I know that's a mouthful. So if you just go to Google, the Google machine, and type in Flagstaff Hypnosis, you'll see me come up on the map and right at the top of the search. And that's me, Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy. And just shoot me an email or text or something, and happy to talk with you.
Awesome. All those links will be in the show notes, and we'll also be having you back on the show talking about past life regression, which I'm super excited about. So we'll have you back on and talk about that and your book. I'm really looking forward to that. It's really exciting. And it's this, I know there's a lot of kind of confusion around these more esoteric techniques and the spirituality of it all. But what this book's about is the science of it all, and around the history and the history of past life regression is fun to talk about. Yeah. Can't wait. Well, thanks for coming on today and educating us on hypnotherapy.
You're welcome. It was fun.
I hope this conversation helped you realize just how powerful your subconscious really is and how much possibility that there is when you tap into it intentionally. Whether you're struggling with trauma, fear, low confidence, or just feeling stuck in survival mode, I hope you walk away from this episode knowing that healing doesn't have to be hard and it doesn't have to take forever. Remember, you don't need to do this alone. If you're curious about doing deep subconscious work yourself, I offer somatic mindful guided imagery, a gentle yet powerful way to access the messages your body and mind are holding. You can learn more at somatichealingjourneys.com. And hey, if you or someone you know is an out of the box healer or expert in mind body modalities, I'd love to hear from you. Email me at mindyourownkarma@gmail.com and apply to be a guest. Thanks again for listening today, Karma Crew. And as always, take what you need and leave what you don't. And always remember to mind your own karma. I'll see you next time.